Gambling. We've all taken a gamble at some point in our lives. A risk, a strategy, or a move that could have backfired. But what really is gambling, and what exactly are we doing when we gamble? To find out, we're going to have to go back, right back to the very start. Gambling is synonymous with the human race, and while it's probable we have been doing it since the dawn of man, archaeologists have found the first records of gambling to be from around 2300 BC in ancient China. It was here, during the period of the First Dynasty, that tiles were discovered that are thought to have been used in a game of chance. During this time, it is also thought that China used keno slips, a form of lottery, to gamble, and the profits from this helped to fund the construction of the Great Wall of China. There are records of gambling in every dynasty that came after this one in China, which perhaps lends to explain why the Chinese are known to have such a high propensity to gamble. The ancient Greeks and Romans are also known to have gambled. Sophocles, the Greek poet, wrote of the mythological hero creating dice during the siege of Troy. While this part might not be true, the fact that dice and dice games existed in this period certainly is true. In fact, it is well known that all forms of gambling, including dice games, were illegal in the ancient city of Rome, partly due to tempers that often flared, leading to violence and even in some cases riots. This ban, however, coincidentally led to the creation of chips. If you were caught playing, you simply said to the guards that you were playing for chips instead of real money. And this same premise of playing with chips to be exchanged for cash is still used to this day in casinos all over the world. The ban didn't stop the Romans though, and they are known to have played at every level of society. Emperor Claudius wrote a book about the games he played and travelled in a carriage that was specifically designed to allow him to gamble on the road. Of course, chariot racing was all the rage in Rome as well, and so became the pastime that many still enjoy now, having a bet at the races. Chariot racing had started out as being part of religious festivals, but soon simply became entertainment and something to bet on. The largest track, Circus Maximus, had a capacity of over 250,000 spectators. Today this would easily be the largest spectator stadium in the world. After gambling with dice, games of chance, and betting on the races came card games. It is widely agreed that card games were first played in China in the 9th century. Although it must be said we don't know much about the rules of these first games, just that the first noted game was known as the leaf game. It is debated how these cards were used, but they were certainly different to the standard 52 card deck we are accustomed to today. This 52 card deck was made by the British in the late 15th, early 16th century and is known to have taken inspiration from both French and Belgian designs. The widespread use of cards unsurprisingly leads to the innovation of many popular card games we still play today. Variations of Blackjack started springing up around this time too. The French played a game 31 in the 1570s and 15 from the 1550s. However, the first game to use 21 was recorded to have taken place in Spain in 1601. The name Blackjack, however, wasn't used until the 1930s. Next came casinos, or at least gambling houses that somewhat resemble the casinos that we know today. These gambling houses appeared all over Europe. The first of such was Il Redito, which was situated in Venice in Italy. While Il Redito, meaning the private room, was open to the public, there were restrictions which meant that it was essentially only for the noblemen of the time. The dress code stated that you needed to be wearing a three-cornered hat and a mask. The general public at the time would simply not have been able to afford these items. Inside, one of the most popular games was known as Biribi. In this game, there were 70 outcomes. The banker, a member of staff, would draw a number out of a bag, and anyone who would bet on that number would win the game's pot. It sounds a bit similar to the very popular games we play today, doesn't it? Next came the most famous of all casino games, the little wheel in Paris, Roulette. The iconic casino game was invented in Paris in the late 18th century. Ironically, this first version is known to have used the American roulette wheel. It is not until 50 years later that the European version was created and the roulette with just one green zero was born. The famous Monte Carlo casino adopted the game, and soon the rest of the world was playing it. As gambling grew more widespread and was benefiting from a boom in popularity, it was to be expected that people were thinking of the next way they could cash in on the craze. And so next came the gambling machine. In the late 1800s, the first gambling machines started to appear. One of these, the Liberty Bell, was invented in San Francisco by Charles August Fay. It was the world's first slot machine. It had 3 reels that used horseshoes, bells, and playing cards as its symbols. As machines evolved, next came the jackpot. One of Fay's rivals developed a feature whereby players could trigger the jackpot by lining up specific combinations. This would lead to the machine paying out all of its coins. The symbols and payouts used by these early pioneers set the standard for all slot machines for decades to come, until in 1964 when the Money Honey became the first electronic slot machine. Casinos now use a mixture of popular card games like Blackjack, table games such as Roulette, and a huge variety of next-generation slot machines. And of course, the most popular casinos are all in Las Vegas. Famous for its strip, there are more than 150 casinos in Vegas today. 71% of visitors that go to Las Vegas gamble during their trip, and the largest ever win was $39 million on a slot machine at the Excalibur Hotel. Today, online casinos and sports betting is growing rapidly, and who knows what the next few decades have in store for the history of gambling.